and welcome to the big picture. With some deaf floor management, the UPA government has managed to overcome the challenge posed to its policy on allowing 51% FDI in multi-brand retail in both houses of parliament today. This defeat of the opposition's motion in both houses should act as a morale booster to the beleaguered government, certainly. However, will this pave way to take up other major reforms agenda and get it passed during the remaining days of the winter session is a question which faces the government. Unlike in the case of the FDI, which was an executive decision, the other major issues on the agenda are all legislative, with bills on pension funds, companies, banking laws, insurance, not to mention Lokpal, all have to be mandatorily passed in both houses. On almost all these, government has not been able to work out a consensus with the opposition. How will the government be able to take up this challenge? Will any other major reforms measure be able to see the light of the day in the parliament during this session? How does the stark division of the parliament on the FDI going to affect these other legislative agenda in this session? We will discuss all this today. Let me ask Mr. Shankar Aiyar. Mr. Aiyar, can you hear me? Today the government has successfully managed to overcome the challenge in the Rajya Sabha like it did yesterday in the other day in the Lok Sabha. Now you have, the government has other major reforms agenda on its table. During this session, how do you think the government will be able to work out some of these, at least some of these, legislative business, which includes some of the major reform measures? Do you think this division which has happened in both houses, the sharp division which has taken place on the FDI, is it going to have an impact on getting the other bills passed?
Now, the first question to ask is, will Parliament be allowed to run? I don't know, I'm not sanguine, because I have seen over the last close to 3 years that the Rajya Sabha at any rate barely runs. So I'm hoping that now that their opportunity to defeat us was given to them, they may have failed, but it was given to them, that they will be more reasonable than they've been in the past and allow the House to run. If the House runs, then we will have, I'm sure, very, very effective debates, such as the one we heard yesterday and today in the Rajya Sabha, on the other outstanding issues. And let us see whether we succeed or not. That is really for the future. We are willing to submit ourselves to the democratic process, which sometimes I wonder whether they are ready to do so.
Okay. We are joined now by Mr. Prakash Javadekar, the BJP MP and spokesman of the party. Mr. Javadekar, Mr. Shankar Aiyar raised the issue. My question today is that, following what has happened in the last few days in both houses of parliament on the FDI issue, now the government wants to move ahead and bring in the other reforms agenda, especially some of the economic reforms, the legislations which they have planned to bring out in this session of the parliament. Do you think, my question, Mr. Javadekar, is after this division which has taken place, the sharp division which we witnessed in both houses of parliament, is this the right atmosphere for the government, and how will your party take up some of these issues, like the pensions bill is there, insurance bill is there, companies bill is there, banking laws amendment bill is there. What is going to be the approach of the BJP on these issues?
See, basically, let us understand that the issue which Mani Shankarji raised is actually my question to Congress. Because what we have witnessed last week in Parliament, in Rajya Sabha particularly, that there are now new strategic partners, SP and BSP, come in the well.
Yes.
Congress people shout the slogans, they put up the placards, and they also come near to the well. So it is the UPA which is disrupting the parliament proceedings for 6 days, and cameras can't lie. That is there, live record, and I keep always everyday record. So it is not we who are disrupting. So whether the Congress has an intention to allow House to function or not is the real question. But barring that, what has happened? We want Parliament to function not only for the season which government had chalked out. we want actually 100 days parliament to function.
No,
Because there are n number of issues
that seems
and
to be
there are n number of bills which government does not even put. They say that there are 50 bills pending, but they put only 16 or 17 bills in this throughout the session. So, it is the government which should actually do 100 days of parliament and 100 days of committee meetings. So, 200 days we work seriously.
These are all,
that gives the democracy real meaning.
Mr. Javadekar, this seems to be quite an utopian idea. As
no, not utopian.
Going by the way we have been witnessing what's happening in Parliament. Anyway, I'm joined now by Mr. Kamaal Farooqui of the Samajwadi Party on the phone line. Mr. Farooqui, Mr. Javadekar also mentioned this. What is going to be, how is the Parliament going to function in the coming days as far as this session is concerned? Now, your party has bailed out the government on this issue of FDI. But there are other issues which are going to come up, which are very serious economic reforms agenda, the bills, the legislative. There's a lot of legislative business which has been, which is on the cards. How is the Samajwadi Party going to react to this? Like pension funds bill, companies bill, banking laws bill. Is this the same attitude which the Samajwadi Party will adopt in the coming days also?
No, sir, let me correct you first. We have not bailed out the government. And I agree with Prakash Javadekar bhai. The prime duty of running the parliament is not any other party but UPA. And Mr. Kamal has very ably handled the whole situation. And when they wanted this session to run properly, they could manage this session. But if they don't want it, it will not run. We are a very, very sensitive and positive party and opposition party. We are with the government for all their good work, but will not be the partner in their misdeeds. In fact,
Mr. Farooqui, the problem to understand what Samajwadi Party thinks is good work of the government and what is bad work of the government is itself become a problem, because here is a situation where your people oppose the FDI on the floor of the house in their speeches, and then it's a completely different thing. So there is a confusion as far as that is concerned.
Yeah, in fact, this confusion has to be understood in a and this 15-20 minutes debate is not enough for this. Okay. But as far as the running of the government is concerned or the parliament is concerned, I agree with Prakash Javadekar to a greater extent that the greater responsibility is on UPA. In fact, if they want to run it, they can run it. If they don't want to run it, they could put the blame on other people also.
Okay, let me get Mr. Shankar Aiyar on this. Shankar Aiyar. So okay. I'm sorry, I think we lost the audio line of Mr. Aiyar. We'll go back to him. Let me go to K.V.Prasad. Prasad, this kind of passing on the buck has been the pattern for quite some time. Now how do you see the impact of these last 4 days in Lok Sabha and Raj Sabha, the kind of division which has taken place on the FDI issue? How is it going to get played out when government tries to bring the other legislative agenda as far as the economic reforms is concerned?
Well, Girish, I'm very certain that the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, who has shown his ability and tact in getting along the FDI contingency issue out of the harm's way of the government, and in fact it has come on triumphant, surely buoyed by the success, there will be fresh efforts to try and see opposition on its side, especially in getting these key reform legislations that the government thinks it should pass, whether it is the pension sector, the banking sector, the insurance sector opening up, and these are the three. But I also see a political challenge coming up in the form of the SC/ST reservations, because two key partners who helped out the government as is being made out, the SP and BSP, are on the other side of the political fence.
Absolutely.
Because Mayawati ji is very clear that she wanted the bill to be passed, SC/ST reservations, and SP has already made his reservation on this issue very clear. So the government would have to really sort this out. Probably they got a breather in the sense that the Bahujan Samaj Party agreed to keep it pending till the FDI issue got out of the way. But now that is out, so I'm sure the biggest political challenge would be this straight away.
Okay, I mean that's very interesting. Let me get Mr. Aiyar in on that. Mr. Aiyar, the biggest political challenge, as Prasad was just pointing out, is going to be the SC/ST reservation issue. You know, first, but I want to know from you, what is the priority for the UPA government now, for your government now? What kind of legislative agenda would they like to first take up? Because we have seen this happening time and again in the parliament. A particular issue gets stuck, and that means the entire house gets disrupted. You know, how business gets done in the house. So, what is the priority of the government now that the FDI is now, you know, it's done and it's over? What is the next priority of the government? Mr. Aiyar?
I don't know. You'll have to ask the floor managers that. I said I don't know.
Okay.
You'll have to ask the floor managers that. But I was just hearing somebody saying
yes.
that the SC/ST Constitutional Amendment Bill
yes.
is going to be the next great hurdle that we're going to meet.
Right.
As far as I know, I may be mistaken, but as far as I know, only the Samajwadi Party has declared itself to be totally against it.
Right.
But in the Rajya Sabha, which is the house in which I serve,
right.
there are only 9 members of the SP. And if it turns out that everybody else agrees, then the bill will have a fairly easy passage through the Rajya Sabha. But of course, if other parties which have still not declared themselves were to come up with serious objections, then we might find ourselves in a situation where the constitutional amendments do not command the 2/3 majority which is required to make an amendment in the Constitution. So I'm not going to be predicting anything here, but I'm not so sure that it's going to prove such a major hurdle.
Mr. Javadekar, the SC/ST amendment bill, I mean, looking at things, how it has been shaping in the last few days during this session especially, there is a demand from a certain section of the parliament, of the parties, that this thing first should be got through, the SC/ST amendment, the amendment bill. What is the stand of your party? Do you think, as Mr. Aiyar is hoping, that there should be, except for Samajwadi Party, you think there is a consensus on this among all other parties, and your party is on the table on this with the government?
We are always supportive of the social justice cause. We have already said that we are in favor of social justice to go further, but at the same time, the constitutionality cannot be violated, because otherwise it will be cheating that you make a law which is struck down, which is sure to be struck down by the courts. So Congress has to take a decision, and Congress has not spelled out its policy as party.
Okay.
The government has brought the bill, but I have never seen Congress reaction as a party. So Mani Shankar can really explain if they are in favor of this reservation and promotion, and then they have to decide how to get it to it. But otherwise, it will be like a woman's reservation bill, which will never see the light of the day.
Mr. Aiyar? Mr. Aiyar?
Well, I'm seriously hoping that the women's reservation bill will see the light of the day. It would be a tragic commentary on our parliamentary democracy if it did not get passed during the current parliament. As for this bill relating to promotions, to quotas in promotion, I personally am in favor of it. As far as I know, I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm not as central to decision making in the Congress as Prakash is to in the BJP. But as far as I know, we're not going to bring a bill which we intend to vote against.
Mr.
My
Aiyar,
guess is that the Congress, whether it has...
Mr. Aiyar, it's interesting that Mr. Prakash Javadekar brought about the issue of constitutionality. You know, do you see that the BJP stand itself is not as much in favor as it talks about, as it would be wanting to, pose?
No, we want...
Mr. Javadekar, let me get Mr. Aiyar first, and then I'll come back to you. Do you see a hitch there?
I don't see why you're getting me in first. This is a question that the BJP will have to answer.
Do you see a hitch?
As far as we are concerned...
Do you see a hitch in the stand of the BJP?
As far as... No, because they have this... He is wondering whether its constitutionality has been established or not.
Right.
I doubt that our government would bring a constitution amendment without checking with our Ministry of Law and Justice. And presumably the Ministry of Law and Justice have said, well, go ahead with this and we'll defend it in the courts if anybody challenges it in the courts. I'm only guessing because, as I said, I'm not close to the center of things.
Okay.
My guess is that we wouldn't have brought this bill
keep that aside.
If we didn't intend to push it through.
Okay, Mr. Aiyar will keep that aside. The issue now is also about the Lokpal Bill. Much has been said and written and discussed on this Lokpal Bill. Whether Lokpal Bill is going to see the light of the day following the select committee has given its report. All that has been. Do you think that is something which the government would like to push in this session itself, Mr. Aiyar?
Well, number one, the previous one was passed by the Lok Sabha.
Right.
And therefore, I think the government believes that an appropriate Lokpal Bill could get through the Lok Sabha.
Right.
And in refashioning the bill, as it were, I'm sure it's taken into account comments that were made in the upper house where matters could not be brought to a conclusion. So I think it will be a sad day if we bring a bill which then once again is seen by either house to suffer from infirmities. And so it should be a very consensual bill with a consensual approach. And I think our government or our party has declared itself more than once in favor of an ombudsman who could be called the Lokpal. There may be differences on certain details of the bill, but the concept itself is one that is perfectly acceptable to us.
Okay, Mr. Javadekar. So the Lokpal Bill, as the Select Committee has now come out with its report, so is that something which the BJP now is finally convinced and prepared to accept it in the present form as amended or as suggested by the Select Committee?
I hope you will recollect our amendments. Essentially, they were the amendments about making Lokpal independent and strong.
Right.
So, lesser representation of government in the appointment and removal, then giving it to the states to draft their own lokayuktas.
Right. That seems to have been accepted.
We doing only model laws.
Right.
So these and CBI's independent directorate of prosecution, independent of the government in a way, and CBI's investigation to be monitored by Lokpal. These were precisely the amendments which government that time was not ready to accept.
Right, but
now these are the exact suggestions.
Right.
Given by the Select Committee.
So
we are with the Select Committee.
So you don't have any problem anymore.
No, but I am doubtful whether government is accepting all those, because what I am learning now from the close quarters in the government, that they are asking that let this take back to cabinet and everything. We said this is Select Committee appointed by the House.
No, the
so
cabinet
it is not there. This cabinet, you have to vote in or vote out.
Cabinet
but
seems
you
to
have no choice to change that now.
Mr. Javadekar, Cabinet seems to have approved these amendments today. There are reports about that. Anyway, let me get Prasad in on this. Prasad, Javadekar is still having doubts about the government's intentions as far as the Lokpal is concerned. Do you think his doubts are justified?
Well, as a person from the opposition, he is very much justified to say what he is. But the government has very clearly indicated right in the beginning of the session when the Parliamentary Affairs Minister held a... But the question is, we have to go by what they said, the intent to bring the bill. They were waiting the Select Committee report. The Select Committee report has now arrived.
Yes.
And once the Cabinet takes a view on it, as it does, it's a matter of, but again, we have actually less than 10 days, 5 working days in the next week and another 4 working days in the last week.
Right.
Probably about 9 to 10 working days of Parliament session.
Okay.
And in this session, the government will have to really prioritize the legislative agenda it needs to push, because even if you push Lokpal from Rajya Sabha in the wake of what the Select Committee does in the report and whatever amendments that need to be carried out, it will have to go back to Lok Sabha again. So you have all these calendar issues, plus the government today has moved supplementary demands for grants. It needs money to run the government. I think that, of course, Rajya Sabha has a limited time period on a finance bill, then the pension reform, the banking sector reforms, and there are other social sector measures that it wants to move. So the priority will have to be drawn by the government and the business advisory committees when they actually sit down to business and see what the houses can do in the next 5 to 7 days. Probably 9 days that Parliament has now, from between now and December 20th, when it's scheduled to adjourn for winter break, December break.
That's interesting, Mr. Aiyar. Prioritizing what the government wants to bring in, considering the fact that there is limited time left. You as a member of the Congress party, you as a member of the Congress party, you as a senior leader who has been a former union minister, what would you like the government to prioritize in this situation?
I just said that you're putting the cart before the horse. Before we can prioritize anything, Mr. Javadekar and his colleagues will have to decide whether they're going to let the House run. Going by the record of the last 2.5 years, 2 3/4 years, some section or the other of the opposition is constantly disrupting the proceedings. I'm very glad that we've had these 2 days of work in the Rajya Sabha, and it has shown itself to be an outstanding forum for public debate and public discussion. If as a result of this, the BJP in particular, and by its example other elements of the opposition, decide that instead of making Parliament a forum for demonstration, they will keep it as a forum for debate and discussion, then that's all to the good. And of course, the prioritization would take place. It would largely take place also in the business advisory group, where all the principal parties of either house are represented. So I don't think it can be entirely decided unilaterally, but I would imagine that what we would like to do is to prioritize that which can be got through, and if we feel that something is going to be too controversial and could result in a disruption of the House, perhaps it would be better to put that off till the budget session and build up the consensus in between.
Mr. Javadekar, is there any issue, any one of these bills? Let me take the pension fund bill, the companies bill, the banking law amendment bill, insurance law amendment bill, forward contract regulation bill. In any of these, have you and the government been able to arrive at a consensus on any one of these bills which the government can take up in the coming days?
I think government also knows, because we have good dialogue on all these 7-8 important money bills.
Right.
And most importantly, on all these bills, Finance Committee, Standing Committee, Parliamentary Standing Committee of Finance has given a unanimous recommendation.
Right.
On insurance, Finance Standing Committee has said that 26% at present is okay and we should not raise the cap.
The government,
the Congress, 1 minute.
The government wants 49%.
No, 1 minute. But Congress members in the committee also have agreed to, after listening to all stakeholders. Let us understand.
Right.
There are certain real concerns. The insurance company FDI was allowed by our government with the hope that there will be 12 billion investment coming in. Actually, 1.2 billion has come.
Right.
It was expected that they will help more penetration, which has not happened.
Right.
Their claim settlement is really not up to mark and not comparable with the LIC.
Absolutely.
And they have not invested into the public assets, but have actually indulged into securities, means in shares market.
Right.
And unit linked, they sold more unit linked insurance policies.
Right.
So all this put together, the 10 years experience of the FDI in insurance is not that encouraging, where we should immediately go in for 51%.
Mr. Javadekar.
So there are issues, but still, these bills, government has to prioritize. There are certain bills in pensions. Pranab Mukherjee had, we had reached an agreement with Pranab Mukherjee when he was finance minister to address the concerns of millions of workers, because it is their hard-earned money.
Right.
And that should not be put to risk.
You had asked for a minimum.
So we wanted little security and sovereign guarantee, and which was agreed to by Pranab Mukherjee. I don't know whether the final bill now which government will bring contains that agreement or not.
Mr. Manishankar Aiyar, the insurance bill which Mr. Javadekar was talking about, in the light of the experience of in the light of the experience with the insurance companies which have come from abroad and which are already functioning here, do you think that the government's idea to raise it to 49% is a good idea?
Yeah, I hardly need to respond to you. The government may think it's a good idea, and if the government thinks it's a good idea, then they'll bring forward their bill. Whether they'll bring it now or whether they'll prefer to do it after they've built up a bigger consensus, I don't know. You'll have to ask the government. But one point that I'd like to really stress, there's almost no report that comes out of a standing committee that is not unanimous.
Right.
For example, our report of my standing committee, the one I work in, which is the Standing Committee on Rural Development, on the land acquisition bill.
Absolutely, land acquisition.
Many of the important recommendations we've made appear not to have been accepted by government. But it's government's right to not accept all of them. And none other than Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, I heard saying, and Prakash was with me in that house at that time, I heard saying on the floor of the house, कि ये क्या नया नियम है कि जो स्थायी समिति कहती है उस सबको हमें स्वीकार करना है. So it has been a standard practice that government applies its own mind and then comes to its own conclusions and then has to come before the whole house.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll move. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yes, Javadekar. Yes, Mr. Prakash Javadekar.
That is the right practice, and government has to prioritize and bring the bills. We will put our views. If we have agreeing to a portion, yes, we'll say yes. If we have some differences and major one, we'll move amendments. Those amendments will be decided in the House. So there is no issue. Issue is whether Manishankar lost the connection that time. Let me again repeat. It is the UPAs and the Congress members are taking the placards. The Congress members are shouting slogans every day on promotion bill.
Absolutely.
1 minute. And the BSP and SP, the new strategic partners of UPA government, are in the well.
All points taken, Mr. Javadekar. We are completely run out of time. In this short discussion, it's quite evident that it's not going to be easy for the government to push through some of the reforms. We will wait and watch how it will be able to manage this challenge which it will have. They have just overcome one challenge, but there are many more challenges to be faced in this winter session. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Manishankar Aiyar, Prakash Javadekar, K.V.Prasad, and Mr. Kamaal Farooqui. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture, same time on Monday.